Good evening. This is Maestro with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today we have a Best-of-5 Faction War series between Chaos and the Imperial Guard. We're going to begin on Estia Province. Our first player is Alpha Omega, playing as the Plague Champion, ranged Chaos hero with a damage over time bolter, and also the ability to repair and heal. Next up, Ununium will be playing as yet another Plague Champion, and Augmented will be playing as Sindri, Trollface, Chaos Sorcerer, Spellcasting, and Battlefield Manipulation Hero. Their opponents, we're going to begin with someone whose name is not one of my favorites to say, but Sergeant Retardo K Aquila, playing as the Lord General, buffing Commander for the Imperial Guard, big area of effect buffs for Guardsman units. Wikkyd will be playing as the Lord Commissar, slightly tanky melee hero with a free energy shield and the ability to execute his own troops to make them fight harder. And HBK Lorente 95 will be closing things out with yet another Lord General. So, a few quick reminders before we really dive deep into this new Faction War series we have here, although it's actually not that new anymore. First of all, this is on an old patch. This is on 2.9.4. I mention that because the newer patch of Elite Mod is out, but I am trying to catch up on Faction Wars. Also mentioning that because it is possible that I may upload out of order compared to what I am recording. Meanwhile, Heretic Squad going down right there while I'm just trying to make announcements. Second announcement is a reminder. Please don't flame the players in the game. Like, please just don't do it. Like, if you have criticisms and do want to actually analyze their gameplay, go for it. That is okay. Go bananas on that. But if all you're going to do is just insult the players, I think it would be better if you just leave that comment in your head and don't post it onto YouTube. You know, these players, they kind of take that risk of being the brave ones to have their gameplay made public. Sometimes they're playing off race because a lot of times Impregnable is just trying to corral players of each race to make these faction wars happen. And also because, honestly, playing the game, actually being the one to play this game, especially this game, is definitely a lot harder than being an armchair quarterback on when you're just watching it. With all that being said, let's move forward. Sentinel being super aggressive here, my god. And yeah, that was way too aggressive right there. I mean, normally Chaos is not the race with the most pressure against them, but, well, our players actually did go for very Chaos Space Marine heavy builds, and we have two Plague Champions, so the pressure against the Sentinel is not that bad. And I think just moving the Sentinel up there with no support and with no kind of tie-up on a lot of those Chaos Space Marines was very much a recipe for disaster. Chaos Space Marines, meanwhile, getting stomped by the Sentinel from Wikkyd that is still alive, and we're going to see an early upgrade on Lorente's Lord General. He's got the grenade launchers. I often talk about this war gear. I like it quite a bit. More so because I actually find it kind of funny just when you actually watch the move ability in action and you see these guardsmen moving quite fast. I think it also increases the speed of the retinue members of the Lord General, but I believe it does not actually increase the speed of the Lord General himself. A very strange idiosyncrasy. Meanwhile, this Lord General just eating damage from all of these Chaos Space Marines. We're going to see some early Eternal War upgrades so far out from Augmented. Alpha Omega, not with... Okay, he does have one Eternal War upgrade indicated by that plus icon on top of the squad. Eternal War increasing the damage of the Chaos Space Marines by 20%. A more modest number than you may think it is. But, you know, when you're trying to put just pressure on the Sentinel, every little bit does count, and especially in multiple Chaos Space Marine builds in team games, I think your opponent will feel it. Meanwhile, this is going to be Alpha Omega engaging onto Sergeant Retardo K Aquila. Plague Champion looking to try and tie things up, but realizes the better play is to get in cover. Now he's going to move back out of cover. Both of his Chaos Space Marines will get knocked over by the All-Reliable from the Kadashan Devils, and soon he will be overwhelmed. Chaos Space Marines will get stomped by the Sentinel, but there is also support here from both Ununium as well as Alpha Omega. Not just kidding, I meant Augmented. Beautiful Doom Bolts going into the Guardsman out of Wikkyd, and his Guardsman squads will be in retreat. Actually, one of his and one of Lorente's. We did see a consume there on a Heretic, so yet more Doom Bolts are going in. Big Doom Bolt volleys from long range. Of course, the Sorcerer's Doom Bolts has a mechanic where Basically, if you have 100 energy, it will shoot a double volley of Doom Bolts. 3, and then another set of 3. If you have less than 100 energy, it only shoots 3 Doom Bolts. So obviously, double the Doom Bolts means double the damage potential, and that is more the optimal way to use it. See, there we only had the 3-shot volley go out. Still did some decent damage, especially against a low-health Guardsman squad. Actually came pretty close to dying. Even some damage over time from the Plague Champion, putting some hurt on it. And it's going to be a 1 fight here in favor of the Chaos players. However, 1 Chaos Space Marine model goes down there for Ununium. Guardsman players, however, taking control of the contested victory point. Havoc will be setting up for Alpha Omega. This will suppress the Lord General. He can't actually stick around here to finish this cap. He needs to retreat or he will just die. And it looks like he might have actually just lost track of his hero entirely. Well, he figured it out at the end, but just a little bit too late. And then even with that damage resistance from being in retreat, he just did not have enough hit points to weather the storm there. And of course, the Plague Champion also will be doing some... He'll actually be doing damage on retreat just fine with that damage over Time Bolter. Lord General with the grenade launcher will be pretty ineffective against the Plague Champion himself. Quite a bit more effective against Heretics, and then also actually still pretty effective against Chaos Space Marines. Saw some upgrades. We are going to have the Mucus Discharge out of Ununium. I like that quite a bit in this matchup. I think the Imperial Guard has... One of the strong things for them in this matchup is the Sentinel pressure against Chaos Space Marines, which, you know, for all the durability of the Chaos Space Marines, the Sentinel should eventually slowly wear them down. So Heretic Worship, and especially combined with that Mucus Discharge from the Plague Champion, can kind of turn the tables on that. So here's where I feel the Sentinel should just be actually focusing on the Heretics. Can easily put pressure on the Heretics. They're not too far out of its range. Sentinel is instead focusing on the Chaos Space Marines. Chaos Space Marines are getting pretty low, but there are plenty of other units putting pressure on that. And now the Heretics, given that there wasn't much pressure put on them, they're actually able to unworship and then just attempt to approach in melee. And that actually ended up pretty much being the win condition for Alpha Omega in this engagement. However, finally, there is a stomp on the Heretics. His Heretics are now too low, and they can't really fight in here much longer. But the battle is won for Ununium. No, just kidding. That was Alpha Omega, you know? All Chaos players just look the same to me or something. So this is a bad position for the Chaos Space Marines. They're out of cover. They're being focused down by 2 squads of Guardsmen. Even if they scare off the Guardsmen, they would definitely bleed. They don't want to lose this model. He kind of got lucky there. Like, not losing a model in this squad of Chaos Space Marines is pretty lucky. Pretty lucky. He kind of just rolled the dice there, and I can't actually complete this metaphor. I'm not sure how that actually works out, but he got lucky. That's what I'm trying to say. So Generator Bash will happen by Ununium, so I got to remember right now Ununium is the one. He's kind of got this reddish color. Looks like a Slanesh-themed army. Meanwhile, a Sentinel. No, that's not a Sentinel. That's a Chimera. A Chimera is here, putting some damage on this node all by its lonesome. We are going to see some reactive Plague Marine purchases out of Augmented as well as Ununium. I'm assuming they're reactive. That assumes that they have seen the Chimera. This might actually be one of the few matchups where it's not a completely terrible idea to buy Plague Marines blind, because it's a pretty reasonable expectation that your opponent is going to get a Chimera. But at the same time, I think the Guard can actually still punish the Plague Marine purchases pretty hard if they actually just don't get Chimeras and actually get something else. Okay, we're going to see a few things going on right here. That's going to be a creeping barrage from one of our Lord General players. Also going to be a grenade out of the Assault Kit Stormtroopers. Meanwhile, there is one squad of Plague Marines that is threatening this Chimera. So Plague Marines don't exactly have particularly high DPS. In fact, I believe Guardsmen, with their increased repair, will actually out-repair the damage of a single squad of Plague Marines. But that, well, we are going to see a squad go down there. I think that was the Stormtroopers as well. Yeah, that's the Stormtroopers down. That's pretty rough. I mean, they were bought pretty recently, and they're down already, so just overextended. I like the Stormtroopers. I like the Stormtrooper purchase. I like the Assault Kit, actually, because of the way they can outrange the Chaos Space Marines. And when you combine that with the plasma guns of the Guardsmen, you can really bleed these Chaos Space Marine models. And I would say, at this point, that much damage would even just overcome certainly the healing over time of the Heretic Worship. And it can also be difficult to even make the Mucus Discharge work if the timing is not correct. So Mucus Discharge there is used. One squad of Chaos Space Marines not actually fully caught by that Mucus Discharge, but it does, like Ununium, is just going to disengage here. Sorcerer, meanwhile, is rocking an upgrade. He has the Rod of Warp Fire. It gives him some decent range damage. More importantly, though, gives him the Warp Fire ability. It is an ability that does plasma cannon damage, also allows you to control the direction. My god, this Chaos Space Marine model just constantly getting knocked down. It must be, I wanted to check and see if that was the Power Sword on the Lord Commissar, but he goes down, and this is a Noxious Cloud. Noxious Cloud, oh no, this might be another squad of Stormtroopers going down. Pretty close call. The Noxious Cloud finally expires, but it got a huge amount of value, put so much threat on wikkyd. He actually nearly lost all of his squads there. A little bit of slow reactions on his part, but luckily for him, it was just barely fast enough to keep those squads alive. I mean, if he loses all those squads there, that's almost him out of the game. Chaos players have an advantage as it is. In fact, wow. Our Chaos players quite a bit faster getting to Tier 2, rather getting to Tier 3. Whereas our Imperial Guard players almost feels like they're kind of stuck in Tier 2. They have definitely lost a few generator farms. Plus 39 power income is not terrible, but it's definitely not ideal either. It's not crippling, but it's very much going to result in situations like these where you're going to end up fighting in Tier 2 versus Tier 3 situations, and Imperial Guard is not really the race that can really deal with that, but my god, the damage! Just not respecting the damage there. That's an autocannon Havoc squad that just straight up went down just under all this ranged fire. Part of that happened because we had a Lord General right here who nearly got out of there himself. He got the Melt-A-Guns, and so this is the second time, well, it's actually not too long ago that I cast another faction war with Imperial Guard, but we're seeing the value out of the Melt-A-Guns, and the value out of the Melt-A-Guns is it's just a lot of damage. When you have a bunch of Imperial Guard squads, they can do enough damage as it is. This is going to be a Sentinel possibly going down, 30 hit points, 28, finally getting repairs. But it's just the Melt-A-Gun with Fight Harder increases the rate of fire of your units, basically, so they are it's just a straight up DPS increase. Although, again, I feel part of that is that the opponent kind of let that happen. Generally speaking, in my opinion, I think the sniper rifle is a bit better because you can just outrange your opponent. You don't have to even try to trade with them. But I suppose with the Fight Harder ability, you're in a situation where it's likely that you will outtrade your opponent. Is this a Noxious Cloud? It is indeed a Noxious Cloud. This is a low health heavy weapon squad. The Noxious Cloud, I feel like it finishes off the heavy weapon squad. It's going to finish off the Catachans. Is it so close? It does finish off the Catachans. These Noxious Clouds getting huge amounts of value in this game. HBK Lorente, the only one with a Chimera, and a Chimera is one of the counters that Imperial Guard has to the Noxious Cloud. Once the Noxious Cloud is put down, you just try to put your units inside the Razorback. Not the Razorback, the Chimera. But at the same time, oh, that's also kind of what happens there. Once you have your Guardsmen in the Chimera, they can't repair, so it means that the Chimera is under more threat from the Plague Marines. Had to finish that thought quick, because the game is over. That's game one in favor of our Chaos players. Little bit of a stomp, that one, gotta say. So hopefully our Imperial Guard players can shape things up a bit for the next game. Game number 2 is going to take place on Argus Desert Gate. Alpha Omega is still here on that Plague Champion, but Ununium has left us, and Corr has taken his place on one of the other Plague Champions. Augmented continuing to play Sindri, Trollface, Chaos Sorcerer, and our opponents are going to switch things up just a little bit. Wikkyd will be staying on the Lord Commissar, Sergeant Retardo K Aquila, however, switching over to the Lord Commissar, and HBK Lorente will be staying on the Lord General. Smoking out here on the battlefield. So, Sentinels for all players. Hopefully our players keep their Sentinels alive just a little bit longer than the first one died in the last game. Very early Sentinel deaths are often quite tragic. As an Imperial Guard player, you are kind of depending on that Sentinel to help you make it through Tier 1. Once you get to Tier 2, it's honestly okay if the Sentinel dies, but throughout Tier 1, you want it alive. You'd want it alive. Sentinel getting repairs here. Meanwhile, yet another Sentinel going to be putting in some shots on the Heretics, while the Lord Commissar out of Sergeant Retardo K Aquila will be getting some special attacks on the Chaos Space Marines. This is not actually looking like a great engagement for Corr. The Heretics start to worship, but they're already at less than half of their health. Guardsmen are focusing on the Heretics, so Chaos Space Marines will look for some force melee on the Heretics. But here's another squad of Guardsmen. They will just help to kite the Chaos Space Marines. We also have a stomp now coming from the Sentinel. Corr realizes it's time to retreat. Might even attempt to stomp in retreat. Doesn't bother. I guess he wants to save it for a more important time, but there was a possibility that he could have scored a model loss if he had gone just all in on it with a Sentinel stomp and retreat. Meanwhile, oh no, another Guardsman, or rather another Sentinel getting pretty low here, but I think this one will just barely be okay. Meanwhile, these Chaos Space Marines way overextending. They've got 3 models, but it won't last too much longer. I think they're trying to trade it out on a Guardsman squad, but that's not worth it. They've already lost 1 model. And the Guardsman squad that had left them, actually, that might even it out. I don't think it does. No, 6 times 19 is... It's actually a pretty close to even trade, but it still favors the Guardsmen. I believe that's a 59 requisition reinforcement cost, or rather 57 requisition reinforcement cost on Lorente's Guardsman squad, but a 66 requisition reinforcement cost on that Chaos Space Marine model. So a trade that slightly favored Lorente there. Oh man, Sentinel's getting pretty close here, but just barely making it out alive. Imperial Guard players putting on a little bit more pressure this time around. Early Plague Sword is honestly really confusing here from Corr. I mean, the Plague Sword, for the most part, that just says, like, when the Commissar gets in, I just want to duel him and make his life hard. The Plague Champion's going to be the one who goes down instead, though. Plague Champion did not have support, whereas the Commissar did. He just had basically the range damage coming in from the Sentinel. I gotta say, I personally don't approve of the Plague Sword here. Extremely limited utility against the Guard. It's almost entirely to be used just in direct fights against the Commissar, because it's going to be incredibly difficult for the Plague Champion to regularly get into melee with guards and squads without having already lost most of his health. So I gotta say that I honestly really question that choice. Generally, you're in most cases, you're going to be fighting a lot more ranged-oriented against Imperial Guard in Tier 1 than you will have to against most other races. And the Plague Champion with that damage over time bolter is one of the best assets that Chaos has in Tier 1 against Imperial Guard. So, Artillery Spotter is going to be purchased for Lorente. Meanwhile, the Sorcerer kind of scaring the Sentinel back. The Guardsman squad will also be retreating, as the Imperial Guard grabs a lot of presence in middle, but kind of for what? That is the question. What are they doing occupying the middle? I suppose they're getting these resource points and getting some nice little extra resource income off of that, but at the same time, they are also losing the top, and that is honestly quite a bit more important. Sentinel nearly taking out the Sorcerer, but Chaos Space Marines put some pressure on the Sentinel and get it out of there. So meanwhile, our Imperial Guard players, they don't have a power farm here. I think, oh my god, Sergeant Retardo K Aquila needs to drop 3 generators immediately for his team with that kind of resource flow. He had almost 900 requisition, approximately 900 requisition. Commissar is in a bit of a rough situation here. Sentinels, wow, Sentinels going to be super aggressive here, looking for the stomp on the heavy weapon team, or rather the Havoc, but they can't stick around there for too long. They need to just put pressure on all of these units. Meanwhile, this Sentinel is trying to get out of there. I feel like the Sentinel should stay in there. Should stay in there, continue to put pressure, help this engagement. The Sorcerer is so low that if there were a few more shots put in on him, he would have to retreat pretty soon. All right, but this Sentinel actually belongs to Sergeant Retardo K Aquila. He is our middle lane player, so it looks like he is going over here to try to help. Who is it here? To try to help Lorente. And I'm wondering how necessary that even is. So for the moment, our Imperial Guard players continuing not to control the top. Still with no generators down here. We've got 2 players with over 700 requisition points. Where are the generators? Like, those generators need to be dropped yesterday. All right, finally generators come down. Chaos Space Marines will get Heretic Worship support. Would be even better if they're in cover. There's some green cover right next to them, literally to their lefts. They will get stomped. So not quite ideal. Now they're just in the open, kind of stuck there because they were stomped and knocked into the open, and they lose a model there. Finally, they will take cover. Definitely a little bit late, though. We will also see the artillery spotters knock them over, but not even really knocking them out of cover, so they'll stay in there. Now they're just going to get overwhelmed. Sentinel looking to move in. We're going to look for a stomp here. Doesn't even necessarily need it. Oh my god. These, depending on their retreat path, these could be dead heretics. All right, that's a pretty lucky retreat path for them. If they had to retreat through up here, it could have been the end of the heretics. So this is a pretty good time. I was going to say possible generator bash, but a lot of pressure coming from their opponents. Man, Sergeant Retardo is saving some requisition for the next game in the series here. All right, finally we are going to see Tier 2 come out from our Imperial Guard players. Alpha Omega a little bit behind. He actually has, he's going to be floating a bit too. A lot of resource float in this game on both sides. Suppression will go out onto the double Chaos Space Marines. And for the moment, our Imperial Guard players will control the top victory point. This movement by Corr is a little ill-advised. What is the Plague Champion going to do here? He's looking for a Blight Grenade, but the upgrade is not there soon enough. He's probably going to get forced off before he has a chance to throw a Blight Grenade. Indeed, that will be the case. I like the idea of the Blight Grenade, but we see just how little value the Plague Sword on the Plague Champion is getting in this matchup. There's just too much range damage coming out, and he's just losing too much health on approach. So there's still a Havoc up here, but it's getting knocked out by the Commissar, who does indeed have the Power Sword. Power Sword, great choice in this matchup. Absolutely slicing through that Havoc squad once the Commissar gets in there. I think the Power Sword is a great choice in this matchup. Do we have a Power Sword on Retardo? No. You can get a lot of extra pressure in melee against the Chaos Space Marines as well as the Havocs in Tier 1 with that Power Sword. You also get that Lead by Example ability. Lead by Example increasing the speed of the Commissar as well as making him do special attacks with every melee attack. In that sense, it's a little similar to Battle Cry out of the Force Commander. That being said, we did see at one point Sergeant Retardo had queued up the Xenos Power Claw. And the Xenos Power Claw, even though it does heavy melee instead of power melee, it does have just a straight up higher base damage value what is going on with these Chaos Space Marines. Higher base damage value than the Power Sword, so it would actually do more damage to the Chaos Space Marines. But if you get the Power Sword, presumably you're getting it earlier on in the game, and you can have that extra damage and pressure against the Chaos Space Marines quite a bit earlier than you would if you were waiting to get the Xenos Power Claw. These Chaos Space Marines are way out of position. They're looking for force melee. They're so low in hit points. They're going to lose one model. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose two. I think they're incredibly lucky to not lose two with that few hit points. Sorcerer throws in some Doom Bolts. He's going to be looking for some more. He doesn't have 100 energy yet. Wants to wait for that 100 energy threshold to get the double Doom Bolt volley. Noise Marines out on the field here, trying to silence all of these units. Kadashan Devils will just have to retreat out of that. They've got so few hit points. All right, meanwhile, that is a lot of damage going out on these Noise Marines. Ooh, but the Lord General going down for Lorente. Oh God. This float out of Sergeant Aquila. I mean, I guess at this point, to be fair to him at this time, there are definitely times when he should have been just throwing things down. There aren't actually places for him to put down generators now. I mean, I guess maybe he could put down another one right here. You know what? Honestly, he should just throw it down, just for the heck of it. All right, actually, plus 71 is like more than you almost ever really need on power. I'm actually really surprised, and I'm trying to figure out how the Imperial Guard players got themselves in this position where they are suddenly have a massive power income advantage. They've gained this control of this positioning when there was so much time when they were floating requisition and not putting power down. How did this happen? Now, one possible explanation is that we've got two Chaos players in Tier 3, and it's possible that they didn't actually do much when they got to Tier 2. Like, it's possible that they didn't really buy that much units. In fact, Corr is the only one who's still in Tier 2, and he's the one who actually has Tier 2 units. Augmented and Alpha Omega, no Tier 2 units, but they're both in Tier 3, so it might have been a Tier 3 rush attempt, and it looks like it's kind of backfiring on them a bit. Commissar in here pretty deep. Where is the support for him? That is going to be some Bloodletters teleporting in. And this is a little bit of a rough teleport for them, but it's also a rough position for the artillery spotters. I feel like the Bloodletters have mostly been forgotten about. Can another one be taken down on retreat? It might be worth it to try, because honestly, the bleed that inflicts would be pretty significant. Bloodletters will get out of there with two models in the end. And the question now is also, what is the game plan for our Chaos players? Missiles going to be doing some nice damage to the Chaos Space Marines. Here's a Manticore Strike getting huge damage. First shot connects and knocks over the Chaos Space Marines before they are able to get retreated. What is the game plan here for our Chaos players? I do ask because they are bleeding victory points incredibly hard, over a 200 victory point deficit. And they're fighting in the middle of the map, away from the contested victory point. Contested victory point is actually wide open at this point. A single isolated unit could even just take it. We've got some missile launcher sentinels. So it looks like Lorente lost his sentinel, but wikkyd and Aquila still have theirs. This is not the greatest creeping barrage. This creeping barrage, it gets some knockback. It buys some time, but I'm not quite sure for what. Yeah, that was a little bit of an ill-advised push there from those Chaos Space Marines, and finally someone realizes just go to this victory point. Of course, they don't have vision here, so they don't necessarily know that it was as wide open as I did, but at the same time, there was no one there on their team, and they were low on victory points, so it would be ideal to at least check it. And heretics are relatively... I'm tempted to say relatively unimportant, but that's kind of debatable because of the fact that they also provide worship, which for Corr and Alpha Omega, very important to their on-the-field sustain. doesn't matter. What is important is that they should have just sent a unit to check. They should have done it earlier. They did do it eventually, but I mean, it's about 250 victory point deficit for our Chaos players. This shrine here, not going to last too long. A Shrine of Tzeentch, even, as we see it will shoot periodic Doom Bolts, and the effect is, you know, okay, but this shrine is also probably going to go down soon. If anything, I'm surprised it's not going down as fast as it could. The frag missiles, rather, the crack missiles out of the Sentinel would definitely be better for taking out this shrine. Instead, they're sticking to the frag missiles, but the frag missiles are quite a bit better against the squads. Huge Manticore strike going in. So our Chaos players not fully respecting the Manticores, and this is actually pretty devastating now from this Executioner Leman Russ. The Executioner Leman Russ getting massive value. Where are the Noise Marines going? The Executioner Leman Russ is actually great for this situation. I think the Executioner Leman Russ doesn't even care that much about your heretic worship. I think it can just honestly just DPS straight through all that. Okay, it is at least a double cap for the Chaos players. They are maintaining the victory point. Another Creeping Barrage used, but not to a whole lot of effect. So we see the Creeping Barrage is not really doing a huge amount of damage. It mostly does a lot of knockback. Now, if you have your army there to follow up, and you can shoot at the units that are being hit by the Creeping Barrage, you can put in a lot of damage against them. The whole point of the Creeping Barrage is it's a mini nuke. It costs, I forget the exact red cost, but it costs a low enough amount of red that you can use that, you know, multiple times per game. It's not like you wait until tier 3, save up 500 red to use a rocket run. You use it periodically to help you win engagements with the knockback that it provides. And so far, the 2 Creeping Barrages that we have seen haven't been used at great times. They've often been used at times when the Imperial Guard is already losing the fight. Maybe it's a desperate attempt to turn the fight, but usually it just ends up being a waste of red because it is being used at a time when they can't capitalize on its effects. Doombolt's going in from the Sorcerer. Right now he is in range stance, which is one of the tricky things about when you have this weapon, the Rod of Warpfire. He would still do more damage in melee, so he would be bleeding these models quite a bit faster if he was just up there whacking them over the head with that stick, and finally realizes it, forces melee, gets a special attack, but the Stormtroopers will take the victory point. And it'll be taken back soon, but our Chaos players are at a time and a point when they really don't want to be giving up too many more victory points. This is actually looking pretty close. They're actually not going to get it back that soon. The Sorcerer actually gets knocked over by the Artillery Spotters, can't complete the cap. The Plague Champion is now trying to keep the cap. He's also not positioned in a way so that he can contribute his damage and cap at the same time. Manticore Strike's going in, though, as well as some Artillery Spotter shells. A lot of long-range munitions coming out of our Imperial Guard players. This might be a decent Creeping Barrage. Missed the Plague Champion, so it does not knock him off the point, but that'll be a Heretic squad down. Tons of demoralization effects coming out of our Chaos Terminators. Chaos Terminators with that autocannon, quite powerful against Imperial Guard. They will succeed in taking out one of the guards and squads. However, they have to be very, very careful about this Catachan Devil squad right here. Catachan Devils themselves need to be careful of themselves. They're down to about 40% of their hit points and they need to retreat. This Terminator squad just absolutely face-tanking the Leman Russ. Bloodletters in here pretty strong, but they will get knocked over by the Catachan Devils, and they will phase into the warp to become briefly invulnerable. But of course, they are unable to attack during this time. Grenade Launcher Heretics, I think, knock down the Commissar, but the Commissar succeeds in getting the cap, so it's a double cap for the Imperial Guard yet again. As we have this brief lull in the action, let's take a look and see what upgrades as well as the levels on our commanders. Power Sword, which we've already seen. Flak Jacket, often a personal favorite of mine. It's very nice. You can execute an enemy troop. It does break their resolve, which basically is like a demoralization effect. Also does a lot of burst damage, so you can use it to execute single models on retreat. Don't know what Sergeant Retardo has. We'll find out soon enough, actually, with this revive. HBK Lorente has the sniper rifle this time. Sniper rifle granting long range. You activate fire on my target, and you increase the weapon range of your guardsmen around you. Stubbornness only on Sergeant Retardo's Commissar. Corr with the Plague Sword. Plague Champion out of Alpha Omega has the Armor of Pestilence. I actually kind of like this ranged Plague Champion with the Armor of Pestilence. He's just going to have so much staying power. And augmented, ooh, we've got the Icon of Tzeentch. I haven't seen the Icon of Tzeentch in a minute. Part of the reason I haven't seen the Icon of Tzeentch is because it's just not nearly as good these days as it used to be. It has been nerfed, to be fair. One of the things that was nerfed about it was also something that was pretty cheesy. It no longer affects units on retreat, and that was also something that was, it was kind of cheesy. You could kind of insta-wipe squads in a way that was very difficult to prevent. Another Noxious Cloud, though. Noxious Cloud also very difficult. Oh my god, Noxious Cloud with the Dark Flames on top of that. A Blight Grenade as well. It hurts so much. What a play. Finally, Corr getting some value with his War Gear upgrades. But it looks like some Manticore Strikes might have put some hurt on the Chaos players themselves. This might be a Manticore Strike. Here it comes. The Chaos Space Marines not getting hit by the Manticore, but they're just walking in front of everything else. This time, the Creeping Barrage at least connects on the Sorcerer. So the Creeping Barrage gets him off the victory point. He's going to go back on it. No, he's not. He's going to put the Curse of Tzeentch on the Catachan Devils. They haven't retreated. That's ideally the thing they need to do. If they don't retreat, they actually could risk dying normally, but no more model kills are procced. There's a model kill procced on the Catachan Devils, but it will expire soon enough that it's not really too big of an issue. So Curse of Tzeentch does make it so that models on the... Curse of Tzeentch makes it so that models on a squad will explode on death. It will also cause knockback, however, when you retreat, obviously you're immune to knockback. In the past, this was cheesy because if you used it on a squad that was in retreat and models started dying, it could create a cascade effect where the one model would die, then another, then another, then another, and it often just resulted in the squad instantly wiping in a fantastic explosion. It was super fun. I loved doing it, but honestly, it also was pretty cheesy, and it probably is a justifiable change for Curse of Tzeentch to no longer work on retreat. Anyway, Land Raider Phobos. Out for Corr, making that known here after finishing up my podcast on the Sorcerer's War Gears. Land Raider Phobos potentially going to take out the artillery spotters. Now the Land Raider Phobos just going to eat some Manticore Strikes. The Land Raider Phobos already down to less than half of its health, taking shots from the Leman Russ. Vanquisher Leman Russ chasing after it. The Autocannon Heavy Weapon Team, or rather the, yes, Autocannon Havoc out of this player, Augmented, should set up, try to act as a deterrent to the Leman Russ. Part of the problem, though, with this very heavy setup team build from Augmented, with two of them very, very vulnerable to Manticore Strikes. Meanwhile, our Chaos player is actually putting some pressure on the natural victory point of the Imperial Guard. However, the Imperial Guard kind of punishing that here. Yeah, there should have been a little bit of force melee, or a little more force melee by the Catachans on the Chaos Space Marines, try to force a model kill or two there. But they decide that they would rather just try to get the victory points back in their favor. Leman Russ, not Leman Russ, Land Raider Phobos moving back forward, only with half of its health. This is kind of questionable. There is more of the Curse of Tzeentch knocking the guards and squads over. A lot of things happening right here. Here's the Manticore Strike going for that Land Raider Phobos, along with a Creeping Barrage. And we also have, oh no, that's not a Creeping Barrage. That's actually just a Rocket Run this time. I'm not even sure what the Rocket Run hit, but this should be a dead Land Raider Phobos. Indeed it is. Second Rocket Run. The Rocket Run's in this game a little excessive. I've talked in the past about how I personally feel the Rocket Run is the third best nuke in this game, but they did not really need to use two of them there. But at the moment it seems like our Chaos players just kind of giving up some of their squads anyway. So this is looking pretty good for the Imperial Guard. It's a double cap and very soon to be a triple cap. Actually, the Commissar might not be able to complete this cap under the fire of the Chaos Space Marines. Let's see what his health looks like and see if this is possible. Going to activate the Energy Shield. Energy Shield is out of hit points. Keeps on activating. All right, he finishes the cap, but it does bring the Commissar pretty low. He might actually just go down. All right, he just barely manages to get it. Sergeant Retardo K Aquila. Oh, man. I know some people are going to go to town in the comments on that one. Anyway, Fist of Brachus is brought out here for Sergeant Retardo. Fist of Brachus. So he was waiting until tier 3 for that weapon upgrade. Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines going after the Manticore. Manticore has been taken down, was just kind of caught out a little far forward, and we just had that advance here. That is a very expensive unit that is taken down. Of course, those Manticores made out of papier-mâché, so if you actually have a Plague Marine squad getting close to it, chances are they're going to finish it pretty quickly. In fact, I think Plague Marines, I think they just two-shot a Manticore, especially a level 3 Plague Marine squad. Yeah, level 3 Plague Marine squad, it's absolutely 100% undoubted. They just two-shot the Manticore. What is this squad of Catachans doing? Goodbye, Catachan Devils. I think even a level 1 Plague Marine squad will just two-shot a Manticore. And so realistically, in most cases, if a Plague Marine squad gets close enough to your Manticore to get a shot, like one shot is pretty much guaranteed, and then it's pretty much just a matter of can you disrupt them or tie them up to prevent a second shot if you want to save your Manticore. But usually, if a Plague Marine squad is getting that close to your Manticore anyway, it means you kind of just got caught with your pants down. Alright, our Chaos players doing everything they can to claw their way back into this match. They are down to 36 victory points, but they're the ones with the double cap. And so far, Imperial Guard players not actually retaking the contested victory point just yet. We now have a Power Fist upgrade out of Alpha Omega, so now we finally have some late melee upgrades. I think the Power Fist later on, even against Imperial Guard, can be worthwhile. This big range damage resistance that you get from using the Pestilence Strike is also great. Made it so that the Plague Champion is taking practically no damage from the Leman Russ here. He can also use that as a late game capping mechanic because it's just so hard to put damage pressure on him to get him off that point to unseat him. Double Leman Russes are here, but they are being pressured by this Great Unclean One. Bit of a line breaker. This Great Unclean One. The Leman Russes can kite the Great Unclean One, but the Great Unclean One won't take damage that fast from the Vanquisher Leman Russes. Manticore Strike's going in as the Great Unclean One moves forward. The Great Unclean One buying so much space at the moment for their team while also taking relatively minimal damage. The Leman Russ, the Vanquisher Leman Russ is considered the anti-vehicle variant, and it will do... The thing is, the strength of Leman Russ with the Vanquisher is not necessarily the DPS. It's more the range. It's more the range. So the Vanquisher Leman Russ is actually not that great against the Great Unclean One. The Executioner Leman Russ would actually be far, far better against the Great Unclean One than the Vanquisher, because the Plasma Cannon damage would be doing bonus damage, and the shorter range on the Executioner is actually not that big of a consideration against the Great Unclean One, because the Great Unclean One is trying to move forward and trying to walk at you and trying to walk into your range to get value. Really more trying to walk into its range. But as it is a melee unit, to get into its range, it will definitely be in range of any ranged units that it is walking toward. And it will just be trying to rely on the overwhelming tankiness of it. So still a double cap for our Chaos players, and we do see Corr is looking to see if he can make it a triple. He's got the Plague Champion right here. He also has the Armor of Pestilence just to give him incredible tankiness. But this is also the point in the game when I still don't think the Plague Sword is really a great choice. I think it's basically, it really should be the Plague Fist. Anyway, Manticore Strike's going down, hitting some Heretics, hitting some Terminators. We've got 4 Imperial Guard vehicles. And while what I said about the 2 Leman Russes, the Vanquisher Leman Russes, may not be the hugest amount of damage against the Great Unclean One, we now have 4 vehicles. One of them is the Executioner that I said would do better, and one of them is the Baneblade, which does overall have higher DPS than the Leman Russes. Yeah, the Great Unclean One has now actually been completely overwhelmed. It goes for a stomp here, but to what avail? It is done. We have a Nurgle Predator. Nurgle Predator, I'm not sure what it's doing, trying to fight toe-to-toe with a Baneblade. Trying to see if it can finish it off. Havoc Squad nearly getting wiped. So that is the Great Unclean One going down. All right, this is a big win for our Imperial Guard players, but their squad on the point gets wiped. So they're still not taking the victory point because all of the units they have that are overwhelming the Chaos players at this time. Nice Demolisher cannon shot, nearly demolishing the squad here, this Chaos Space Marines, that is. And finally, we're going to see the heavy weapon team of all things going for the cap here. Plague Champion is going in. It's also going to be another Noxious Cloud. That is the Aura of Decay from the Armor of Pestilence, knocking them over, and the Baneblade going down as well, unbelievably. Our Chaos players not quite, or rather, yes, our Imperial Guard players, no. Let me start over again. Let's see if I can get it right the third time. Our Chaos players not yet ready to yield this victory point. They're losing the fights, but managed to kill enough infantry so that they maintain control. All right, they've delayed for a while, but I think at this time it is going to be Sergeant Retardo K Aquila getting that victory point. As the Leman Russes continue to prove to be overwhelming. This late-game Sentinel making it all the way to Tier 3, making a super aggressive stomp, knocking over the Havoc as well as the Heretics. To be fair, the pressure on the Sentinel is not huge. It's mostly only the Chaos Terminators, and there's a whole lot more pressure going in on the Terminators. The Terminators are gone. It's only the Havoc as well as the Heretics. God, the Havoc just blew up almost in an instant. It's now a double cap yet again for our Imperial Guard players. We do see the Plague Champion. No, these are the Plague Marines trying to make something happen back here. They're probably going to go for a desperate victory point capture attempt here. I think they at least get the decap, but how much more can they get other than that? No, they won't, because they're going to get knocked down by the knockback of the grenade launcher Casterkins. Passive knockback on these things. Double Casterkins out of Lorente, one with the plasma guns for the raw damage against the power armor units, and then the grenade launchers for the utility there. This lone Chaos Shrine of Zine should be going down pretty soon, and that should also be game number 2, going in favor of our Imperial Guard players. Let's go to game number 3. Game number 3 in our Best-of-5 series will take place on Wrath of Baal. You don't see this one that often. Augmented continuing to play the Sindri Trollface Chaos Sorcerer. Ununium is actually going to return here. He will be playing as the Plague Champion. Alpha Omega, also on the Plague Champion yet again. Their opponents, I believe they're going to be sticking to the same heroes that they did have in the last game. Lorente on the Lord General, and then Sergeant Retardo, as well as wikkyd, will be playing as those Lord Commissars. So you don't see this matchup that often. The kind of the Space Hulk tile set. A variant, I would say, of the original Judgment of Carrion map that came in retail. One of the differences of this, though, is that on Judgment of Carrion, there were pipes between some of the lanes where early on in the game, they were pretty much, it made those paths inaccessible to your units, but later on in the game, you could destroy those pipes and go through there. Those pipes don't exist here, so it does have kind of more open rotation possibilities on Judgment of Carrion. It's also possible that this is not just, that's not the only difference. There might be other things that are different, because honestly, it's been literal years since I've even seen Judgment of Carrion, let alone played on it. So fights going on multiple parts of the map, just light skirmishings, just a bunch of 1v1s at the moment. Guardsman and Sentinel putting the damage pressure on to the Heretics. Heretics probably going to be going down pretty low pretty soon. And this is probably looking like a one fight for our Guardsman player right here, wikkyd, as he continues to put the pressure onto Augmented. The Chaos Heretics, they got to go. The Sorcerer can't fight all of this by himself. And the Commissar just continually tying up the Chaos Space Marines until he gets so close to the enemy base. Yeah, that's when he needs to start backing up. And the Sorcerer needs to be super careful here. It could result in a Sorcerer kill if he overstays his welcome. I think he'll be okay here. Yeah, he's absolutely okay. Meanwhile, in this lane, looks like our Imperial Guard player is winning most of their fights, certainly in the mid lane and the left lane, but how about this fight? Oh, I really might have... Look at this chase here. Oh, but the weapon on the Sentinel doesn't finish. This would be so big if he can finish it off. I think he can. Yes, that's such a good kill from HBK Lorente. What happened to Alpha Omega? That wasn't the only squad he lost. He's going to try to trade it out with a Commissar kill, or rather a Lord General kill, but he loses the Plague Champion as well. Oh no. Like, he needs help here. He can't win anymore on his own unless HBK Lorente is going to be gifts him a Sentinel kill. All right, meanwhile, augmented, this low health Chaos Space Marine squad, they gotta go. Even with the pressure that they could put on this. Okay, he's really playing with fire here, but maybe it's wikkyd who's playing with fire here. He might lose the Sentinel. Oh my god, wikkyd actually pays for that. So it was wikkyd who was being over-aggressive in the end there. And there was not enough pressure coming on those Chaos Space Marines as it was. Probably, of course, Stomp was on cooldown. Stomp could have made a difference there, but it was most likely used earlier on in that engagement, which, I mean, wikkyd had the advantage there, and he just kept the Sentinel in there for too long, looking for more against the Chaos Space Marines. Should have just backed it up, got it some repairs with the guardsmen that were present, and then just continue to do damage to the Chaos Space Marines from a safe distance, instead of trying the close-range shenanigans. So we had some early engagement wins for our Imperial Guard players, but it is now our Chaos players who have control of the victory points. The victory points, though, pretty much dead even, 459 to 459. Plague Champion still dead for Alpha Omega. This is really rough for Alpha Omega with all of those early squad losses. Not having the Plague Champion, not having a Heretic squad to provide worship support. So yeah, I mean, he really needs support from one of his allies. Meanwhile, it's going to be 2v2 in middle. Ununium also has his attention split. He's reviving a Plague Champion, but he's also fighting here in the middle. He's got one of his Plague Champion squads suppressed. I don't think we've seen a single Raptor squad in this series, so heavy weapon teams can really get a lot of value here because the approach here is just too linear from Ununium. The absolute best he could hope for is to split up his Chaos Space Marines so that they don't both get suppressed, but there's also a lot of damage pressure coming out of the Guardsmen as well as the Sentinel. Let's take a look at this rotation here from wikkyd. wikkyd rotating over, but he doesn't have a whole big army to rotate with. But, you know, if he engages with Sergeant Retardo at the same time, it should just be enough to overwhelm Ununium here. Ununium looking to get into melee with his Heretics. He will get one squad into melee, but eventually he has to retreat them. Revive on that Commissar, so we have a Commissar alive for Sergeant Retardo as well as wikkyd. Once again, we've got a Power Sword out of wikkyd, and that will just chunk those Chaos Space Marines. Looks like a one engagement for the Imperial Guard, so it ended up being a pretty nice rotation for wikkyd, and it did result in the engagement win. They will take the contested victory point back. Meanwhile, another Lord General will be going down here. So this one should probably be a rotation from Sergeant Retardo to attempt the revive at some point. Oh no, yeah, these are... The heavy weapon team purchases are actually very strong right now because our Guardsmen, our Imperial Guard players, sorry, our Chaos players, for the most part, are just not equipped to deal with it. Even our Sorcerer player doesn't have any of the war gears that make him normally so highly effective against heavy weapon teams. And of course, the Plague Champion just doesn't have those kinds of options. Now, there are definitely some risks to trying to go Raptors as well. They jump in, but if there are Catachan Devils ready to counter-engage, that can be pretty rough for the Raptors. Meanwhile, one way or another, Alpha Omega will take control of this power node. He might want to take it for his team, or he might just want to destroy all of it. Range Plague Champion still for Alpha Omega, still range for Ununium, which I think is ideal. I think to the extent that you can get the Plague Sword in against Imperial Guard, I think it's really only against the Commissar or only against a Inquisitor who goes for the melee build. Other than those situations, I think the Plague Sword is just not a good choice, especially for the resources that you would be investing in it. So luckily we don't see that this game. Man, our Guard players really want to take control of this power node right here. Really locking it down, even committing a multi-laser turret. Let's take a look at this engage, this angle. The heavy weapon team is not here. It's not even his heavy weapon team. Oh no, the heavy weapon team is here. I'm mixing up the players. Here's the heavy weapon team. But Lorente has also lost a few units. Okay, the grenade launcher is not too bad for dealing with the heavy weapon team. Knocks it down, and then we just have the follow-up damage coming in from the Chaos Space Marines. But nice repositioning with the Lord General with that move. We saw the streaks on the heavy weapon team basically showing their movement speed. And this is actually really well played by HBK Lorente here. Nice use of the war gears, nice repositioning. It's a time when I can really compliment the players in this game, because this has definitely been a little bit of a sloppier faction war out of a lot of the ones in recent memory. And I even began out this series by cautioning people against basically insulting the players in this game, and I do say, you know, not really insulting. I'd say I myself at times had lightly poked fun at some of the things that happened in this game. But yeah, there are definitely some silly things happening. So it's nice to see, you know, a nice play there out of HBK Lorente, who I feel hasn't looked super strong in much of this series. Catachan Devils getting super low here for Sergeant Retardo. 7 hit points, 4 hit points. They're just barely going to get out of there alive. Another fight will be happening right here. Upgrades out of Wikkyd. We have the Power Sword as well as Stubbornness. So we see he's just tanking like a boss here. Chaos Shrine of Tzeentch not going to last too much longer. The Doombolt hit's still doing some decent work. That one particular squad that's low can't just stick around there, because a few more Doombolt shots will go in. We've got Stormtroopers from Wikkyd, but eventually the Chaos Shrine of Tzeentch is taken down. Lord Commissar trying to look to get close to his units so that he can start getting some of those healing procs. More technically just health regeneration. What a standoff this has also been. I feel like HBK Lorente hasn't retreated in a while. At the same time, though, I complimented him before, and I just realized I don't think he's even really winning this fight. Neither player is really forcing the other one to full retreat, but Alpha Omega was able to take this power, and that is, of course, providing a power income advantage for the Chaos players. They've got plus 74, which in a lot of cases, plus 74 is more than you even really need, whereas our Imperial Guard players are only at plus 49. The plus 49 just coming from the 2 natural power farms. So that control over the contested power farm, a big advantage for our Chaos players at this time, which is why we are seeing the tier 3 rushes. We got some more massive floats here. So, I mean, if Alpha Omega is starting tier 3 and he has 200 power in the bank as well as 900 requisition, he has been floating for quite some time. At that point, that kind of defeats the purpose of a tier 3 rush, because you didn't go tier 3 anywhere near as early as you could have. Maybe not necessarily. I'll take that one back a little bit because of the fact that it still does matter if he's got tier 3 and can still put out a tier 3 unit before our Imperial Guard players can get to tier 3 themselves, which it's looking like that's most likely the case. Manticore Strike going down, does manage to hit the Chaos Space Marines. They do not retreat, but they're super lucky not to lose a single model, and just as I say that, the Guardsmen come in to follow up, and the first one with that plasma gun just gets a headshot on one of those Chaos Space Marine models. Nice grenade launcher barrage, though, knocking down the Guardsmen as well as the Stormtroopers. I don't know if these Guardsmen are... I was going to say, they're not behind the green cover. They're in the yellow cover of the craters that are on the ground. Force melee from these Chaos Space Marines is looking kind of strange. I mean, yes, they win handily, but they're just also so low in hit points. And we might see this... Yeah, the Stormtroopers take out another model. That was pretty close to the entire squad going down there for Alpha Omega. Very unnecessarily. So victory points are super even. We've got another fight over the contested victory point. This should be a creeping barrage. Knocks them away. At this point, it might have been more worth it to try to knock them forward. Because these Chaos Space Marines just get up. The Plague Champion does end up having to retreat, but and he actually could have healed himself with Mucus Discharge, so theoretically he could have stayed out here longer. This is going to be quite an interesting one. We did have an execute on the Guardsmen, so they are just trying to win this fight by out-trading, just trying to straight up do more damage. Catachan Devil still in here as well. They'll throw down a smoke grenade. It's also going to be a Manticore Strike coming in, or is it? Or is that just still the Commissar Flare effect? I guess it is. Here's a little bit of a flank, though, as this is Sergeant Retardo winning the fight on this front, but he will also have to deal with some enemies from behind him. It's Augmented coming in from behind. If he hadn't eaten that Doombolt shot, I feel like there might have been a decent chance that he could have won this fight. If he had split up his units a little bit more, dodged the Doombolts, I think the Guardsmen might have still been able to out-trade the Chaos Space Marines walking on the mines in retreat, but not a single model going down. Meanwhile, we finally have a decap by the Imperial Guard on this contested power node. Autocannon heavy weapon team is set up, taking some shots at the Plague Champion. He has no upgrade, so he's not going to last very long at all under the damage of the Guardsmen as well as the Stormtroopers. Meanwhile, this is HBK Lorente. Once again, we see the Melt-A-Gun, so just trying to go for that DPS increase on basically just all your squads. Quite a lull in the action at this point. Victory points have actually not changed that much in the past few minutes. 301 to 334. Let's take a look at this movement from Wikkyd, who has a rather small, compact army. He's got the Commissar. Going to be upgrading to the Bionic Eye. This is not the best situation for Bionic Eye without having Ogrins or Catachans. I guess he puts that on the... Okay, he cancels Bionic Eye. Yeah, I did not feel that the Bionic Eye purchase really made that much sense. He's in Tier 3. Ideally, I think Wikkyd really just needs another unit. Like, he's doing okay without it, but to continue on to this game, he should get another unit. And I think the only other upgrade that would really... Upgrade for his Commissar that would really make a difference in that fight would be the Emperor's Wrath. Anyway... Manticore Strikes, knocking over Chaos Space Marines, still not losing a model. Can the Guardsmen find a model kill? No, they can't. Instead, they're just going to be taking more shots at this Plague Champion. Plague Champion with the Armor of Pestilence to make him super tanky yet again. Chaos Space Marines looking for this power. So much fight over that power. Okay, yeah, this is a fight that Wikkyd, with his current army, he just absolutely cannot win this. Oh, and his Stormtroopers aren't even Assault Kit Stormtroopers. They are Melta Stormtroopers. So, yeah. I mean, I guess... Yeah. He needs another unit. He can't just continue fighting with what he has. He will lose pretty much every single fight against Augmented with what he currently has. Like, Augmented would kind of have to be completely AFK for his army to lose to Wikkyd's at the moment. So with the strength of his superior composition, Augmented will... This is going to be a full power farm easy. Land Raider Phobos is out here for Alpha Omega, so yeah, our Chaos players in Tier 3. Manticore Strike, though! Instantly wiping one of the Heretic squads. The second Heretic squad pretty low on hit points. This is a Commissar Flare, not a Manticore Strike. You can tell because there are these circles around around all of the Chaos units. It's not going to be enough for Wikkyd, though. Yeah, even with the Commissar Flare, he can't win this fight. So the only thing that might help him win this fight is the fact that now he's getting support here from Sergeant Retardo. But even then, we have the Demon Shield right here. Catachan Devil's nearly getting wiped. Chaos Space Marines content to stick around, and their Doom Bolt's going in as well. This might be enough for Augmented to actually win this fight here. The Demon Shield just proving to be very, very powerful here. Just a lot of damage reduction. And that ends it up, I believe, yeah. Augmented literally just won a 1v2. All right, this is starting to look pretty decisive for our Chaos players, especially, yeah, another Guardsman squad will go down. Catachan Devils at this point are just feeding. This game might be over. It's a triple cap for our Chaos players very soon. Plague Champion, yeah, he's going to use Pestilence Strike, just massive damage resistance. I believe this is a 90%, yes, 90% range damage reduction, so he's taking almost no damage here. He can just cap under this, and he can use the ability without interrupting his own cap. So it's very interesting in that you get, that's more of a utility ability on a melee weapon. Of course, it also stuns, so that's very useful when you are trying to deal with some late game super infantry units. We might see the Predator go down here. Honestly, it should be, but this Leman Russ driver needs to be fired. Okay, finally they get it between the two Leman Russes. One Leman Russ, though, in a bit of trouble, takes a rear armor missile shot from the Plague Marines. Pretty lucky that those Plague Marines stepped on a mine, but the Terminators might be able to finish it off. I'm not even sure if it was the Terminators who finished it off. Oh, no. This Leman Russ also way out of position, and it's going to be done as well. Honestly, with this Leman Russ done, the triple cap, this is game. Oh, finished off by the Blastmaster. Should pretty much be a concede in a few seconds because our Imperial Guard players are done here in this game 3. Yeah, there it is. All right, well, time for game 4. Game number 4 will take place on Calderas Refinery. Our first player is Augmented. He's actually going to be switching over to the Plague Champion this time. Alpha Omega, just ride or die with that Plague Champion. And Ununium will actually be switching over to the Chaos Lord. First time we will see him all series. Big, tanky, destructive melee hero who walks through cover and cannot be suppressed. Their opponents on the side of the Imperial Guard, Sergeant Retardo, will be on the Commissar. This is going to be the first time we will see the Inquisitor as well, this one coming from HBK Lorente, and he is, she is, a spellcasting and control hero, can also become a melee tank with certain war gears, and then finally, it's going to be wikkyd, once again, on that Commissar. Alright. So, engagement's happening pretty quickly on this map. Or at least players are getting pretty close to each other. Double Sentinels, a lot of pressure to put on these Chaos Space Marines. Guardsmen coming in behind. This is a double, yeah. So Augmented just calls it right away. He backs up, tries to just get out of there, mitigate his losses. That also means he's going to be pushed into his base. The question is, where is Alpha Omega? So Alpha Omega will be coming out here. Starts putting some pressure on the Sentinel. His Heretics also coming by. So our Imperial Guard player is taking advantage of this very early window where there is no second Chaos Space Marine for any of the Chaos players because Chaos Space Marines are a little bit more expensive to field, so it just straight up takes more time to get them out on the field if you choose to go for a double Chaos Space Marine build. Meanwhile, our Guardsman players out on the field here, all of them with double Guardsman and a Sentinel, can get that pretty cheaply, and you just have a lot of range damage early on. It's a small window, and as we shall soon see, we will have double Chaos Space Marines out for every single one of our Chaos players. But, man, Lorente as well as Wikkyd really putting the pressure on pretty hard against Augmented. So Augmented is in a little bit of a rough situation where he's kind of trapped in his base, but then they actually take the pressure off of Augmented, but they, in the process of doing that, they get a commander kill on Alpha Omega. Sentinel being incredibly aggressive. 2 spots of Chaos Space Marines there and not putting quite enough pressure on this. Only problem I don't like about this from the Imperial Guard is that they haven't actually taken the time to get the contested victory points. So there is kind of the question of what are they actually achieving with this? They might get some model kills, but ideally in this case, you want to be using that kind of pressure to put victory point pressure on. Either victory point pressure or getting a power bash somewhere. And there's no power to bash here, so ideally it's victory point pressure. Especially that was such an early play that it's hard to get power pressure because your opponent doesn't have much power down yet that early on into the game. Now we finally have the power down, but we're also at the point where we might have some... Well, we'll see how our Chaos units do. 1 squad of Chaos Space Marines getting super low. I mean, they're completely out of cover. We will have the Commissar slowed by the bilious discharge from the Plague Champion. And it really is Augmented just struggling to get out of base. But again, at the same time, they aren't really capitalizing too much on this. The Imperial Guard, that is, in terms of victory points. Okay, so now they will finally get a little bit of a power bash. But how much of one? It's Flamer Guardsmen not even finishing the generator because they were engaged in melee by the Chaos Space Marines, so they actually have not gotten a single generator. Double cap now for the Guard, so now they finally are going to start putting on some of that victory point pressure, controlling both their natural as well as the Chaos natural. Chaos Space Marines, though, when it's lone Chaos Space Marine squads caught out, not in cover, and without any heretic worship, that's an incredibly bad position for them to be in this matchup because they will just bleed models quicker than you would think, and they will be and without actually inflicting significant losses to the opposing Imperial Guard players. They might pick up a few Guardsman models at most. This Commissar is getting a little over-aggressive here. Force melee from the Chaos Space Marines actually not even needed. So Sergeant Retardo really, yeah, he really overextended with that push by his Commissar. We've got the Inquisitor here from Lorente looking for melee against the Chaos Space Marines. She will get a knockback, but that doesn't knock the Chaos Space Marines off the point. Nevertheless, it still actually is the Imperial Guard putting on the victory point pressure at this time, 491 to 412, as it is a single cap for them, no caps for our Chaos players. This is a game here. This is quite a game. Whatever's going on, it's kind of crazy. Sentinel, oh no. Does it have a stomp ready? I think the Sentinel might be dead if it continues to take damage from the Chaos Space Marines. Heretic's still chasing after it. Where is the stomp? The Heretics are literally trying to finish this off. They aren't able to do it, but that was a much closer call for that Sentinel than it honestly should have been. Catachan Devils coming from different directions, or rather, well, Guardsman units coming from different directions. Catachan Devils will throw down an Old Reliable. Knocks over the Chaos Space Marines. Chaos Space Marines, however, going to be overwhelmed here. We have a Guardsman squad that lost 4 models. These Chaos Space Marines, if even one is taken out, it's a trade in favor of the Guard, but they don't get it. It has actually been pretty amazing how much Augmented has been trapped in his base this game. Wikkyd will get the revive there on Sergeant Retardo. Where is HBK Laurent? Oh no, there's no revive coming for this one. All right, Chaos players, though, making some things happen on the other side, trying to trade things out. They will get a generator bash here. This is going to be a full generator bash, I think. 2 guardsman squads coming out. That's not enough to repel this attack. All right. Augmented still trying to get out of his base. Taking a lot of losses in the process. Actually, maybe not. Hasn't lost a single model on these Chaos Space Marine models still. Our Chaos players getting a little bit lucky on some of their lack of model deaths on their Chaos Space Marine squads. Catachan Devils are not going to be so lucky. They retreat way too late, and they are wiped entirely. Meanwhile, Sentinel is going to go down as well. It just kind of got caught there. A miss microwing going right into the double Eternal War Chaos Space Marines. Big pickups for our Chaos players to help them come back into this game. I say help them come back into this game, but I almost feel that our Imperial Guard players may not have achieved enough with all that early pressure they did to keep Augmented pinned in his base. Right now, the power income is actually slightly in favor of our Chaos players. They've got the double power farms. We actually have a contested farm currently in favor of the Imperial Guard team. That is keeping them up a little bit, but soon they're going to lose that, so now they're down to plus 29, which is a little bit rough. They're going to look to get back their natural, and it should be Sergeant Retardo, who hopefully is not going to be floating too much, who puts a few generators down, because wikkyd can't really afford it at the moment. Lorente could, but it should really be more. Okay, actually now I realize it could be either one of them. Now that Sergeant Retardo actually started buying a tier 2 unit. So let's take a look at the unit tabs again, see where they're going. Full Chimera out from all of our players. So we don't yet see any anti-vehicle, pretty much aside from the Noise Marines, who could be upgraded to a Blastmaster, but there is currently literally no anti-vehicle. This Plague Marine squad will be the first anti-vehicle unit purchased for the Chaos team. They have nothing that can upgrade to it. Another Sentinel going down, though. So Sentinel's just getting a little too close, just being too aggressive, trying to make plays, and the aggressive Sentinel plays, even when they succeed, it's a really big question mark of whether they justify the risk of losing your Sentinel entirely. And the best I can say is at least the Chimeras are here to effectively replace the Sentinels in terms of the utility that they provide to the Imperial Guard army. One squad of Chaos Space Marines super low, most likely going to go down. That is a squad of Chaos Space Marines down, just overextended, belong to Alpha Omega. Heretics, where are the Heretics going? That's not a flank that they want. There's not a whole lot that these Heretics are going to achieve by themselves. I would say a decap on this requisition is the best thing. Possibly what might even be better, though, would be the victory point. Ooh, we do have Chimera in quite a bit of trouble right now. We are going to see the Guardsmen try to get out, try to provide repairs, but they're just going to be silenced by the Noise Marines. This is probably a dead Chimera. Can the Plague Marines get off another shot? We're going to see some speed worship from the Chaos Lord trying to get his units in there, but the Plague Marines are kind of in the back, so they aren't going to get it. So that Chimera just barely stays alive with 22 hit points. I think I'm hating the blind Plague Marine purchase a little bit less against the Imperial Guard, because there is also a part of me that's thinking, what else are you going to purchase? I think Blood Crusher, as good as it is in many other matchups, is a little bit riskier here. Bloodletter is also something that highly effective in many other matchups, but a little bit riskier here as well. Not quite as much as the Blood Crusher. Just a definitely chance that Bloodletters, if they're just trying to teleport in on Guardsman squads, they get focused, they get stomped, they get shotgun blasted by Catachan Devils. Bloodletter's probably a slightly better choice than Blood Crusher. But, nevertheless, we just have the Plague Marines. And Normally, I definitely don't like Blind Plague Marines, but they are pretty effective against the Chimera. Not so much because of the amount of damage that they do, but because once you are putting pressure on the Chimera with the Plague Marines, the Guardsmen need to start repairing the Chimera. Now, the Guardsmen can out-repair the damage of the Plague Marines, but they're going to have a lot of trouble dealing with things like a Blastmaster Noise Marine, a Plague Champion with a Bile Spewer, or a Chaos Lord with the Armor of the Inferno. Chaos Space Marines, though, just taking too much damage from those Guardsmen as well as the Stormtroopers. So it's a pretty comfortable victory point lead for our Imperial Guard players. However, how much longer will that last? Part of that may have to do with that, once again, we kind of see our Chaos players attempting that Tier 3 rush. Alpha Omega with that early Predator, while most of our Imperial Guard players still in Tier 2. Wikkyd is the only one who's even close, just barely finishing the upgrade at that time. This Predator going to look for the chase. That is a dead Chimera, 100%. Getting snared by the Plague Marines, exposing rear armor to the Predator. This second Chimera has no business even being here at all. The Predator can chase it. The Predator can just kill it. Predator, though, I think the Predator is respecting the Catachan Devils with the single Meltagun a little too much. I think that Predator could have actually just straight up finished this Chimera. As it is, the Chimera might be dead anyway. Yeah, it's 100% dead. So the Chimera is not proving to be too effective in this matchup. Now, our Chaos players went for the Tier 3 rush, but they've effectively given up 300 victory points by going for this Tier 3 rush and not really spending too much in Tier 2. Blastmaster, no, just kidding. These Noise Marines don't even have a Blastmaster. So before I had mentioned Blastmaster Noise Marine could really threaten Guardsmen trying to repair a Chimera. Truth is, actually, just default Noise Marines also would really threaten the Guardsmen trying to repair a Chimera as well. Chaos Lord also has the Combi Flamer. He's had that for a long time now, of course, though. Just gives him some extra range damage against the Guardsmen. I think that's almost the mandatory purchase in this matchup. Otherwise, the Chaos Lord does fairly little. Nice, let the Galaxy burn. Pretty much not dodged at all, though. Not even attempt to dodge it out of HBK Lorente. And, man, actually, with all the victory, despite the victory point lead that our Imperial Guard players have built, it's quickly going to evaporate because it's a triple cap against them, and they barely have any armies whatsoever. Inquisitorial Mandate on the Inquisitor, not exactly getting a whole lot of value there. Not quite sure if these upgrades were quite what HBK Lorente needed, especially with the armies lacking pretty much all around from our Imperial Guard players. Oh, and we've got 2 dead commanders. This is a pretty disastrous situation for our Imperial Guard players. They started off with just like pinning Augmented into his base, not letting him out. They've got a big victory point lead. The Chaos players kind of gave that to them a little bit with their Tier 3 rushes, but it's looking like they will take those victory points right back away from the Imperial Guard at this point. It's starting to look incredibly dominant for our Chaos players. I mean, especially Ununium with this big army. Double Chaos Space Marines. Level 3 and Level 3. Level 2, Blastmaster Noise Marine, now getting that Blastmaster. That is Plague Marines, Level 2. Chaos Terminators as well. Chaos Terminators, a lot of damage. If they choose to get that autocannon, they're effective against all targets. And we're also going to see the Generators taken down. At this point, this might actually be more or less game in favor of our Chaos players. Nevertheless, the victory points are not done yet, so we are going to see the attempted offensive by wikkyd. He does have a tank. That's about as good of a chance as he's going to get, but he's going to lose one of his guardsman squads? No, not losing the guardsman squad right there. That's actually pretty nice, and that is also why I have talked in some previous threads, actually a comment chain on Indrid's channel about the nukes, and we see actually that the Imperial Abyss there got relatively little value. It did not kill a single squad, even with that Guardian squad in it for a little while. Once it retreated, it was able to make it out of there alive. The most that Imperial Abyss achieved was it forced the Guardian squad off the field, which does make it a little bit easier for the Chaos team to win fights, because it's just they're down one more squad that they could be using to try to take back the map. Rather, it's the Imperial Guard players would be down one more squad that could help them retake the map. And maybe that's enough, as that was the attempt. That was pretty much the push attempt for our Imperial Guard players. That was one of their last attempts. They'll at least have the time for another one, but I'm not even sure if they really have the army for it, especially if more squads are going down here. Part of what also happened here is also part of just the flow of this particular matchup, where, if anything, I think Imperial Guard is a little bit stronger in this matchup in Tier 1, but come Tier 2 and Tier 3, Chaos can really run away with it with a lot of their high damage things. The Chaos Space Marines, upgraded Chaos Space Marines, Chaos Terminators, the area of effect abilities out of their commanders, and that is indeed the concede and the end of the series, 3-1 in favor of Chaos. Hope you enjoyed it, and have a good night.